The following program is a Town of Colonie television production of the William K. Sanford Town Library.
All right, welcome to Legislative Update. My name is Joe Nash. Today we're talking with Assemblyman John McDonald of the 108th District, which encompasses Rensselaer, Saratoga, and not the whole thing. It includes the whole city of Cohoes, Waterford, Troy, Green Island, Waterville, and half of Albany.
About a third of Albany.
A third of Albany. And I guess we could start with, we're going to talk about what the last session, what went on, what's going to be upcoming. But first, since it's summertime, I was going to ask you, I'm sure you get this question a lot in person, but maybe not on TV, but what do assemblymen do in the summer when it's not session?
You know, it's funny. My first year I was so sensitive because people come up, so you're on vacation for the rest of the year. Not really.
Well, I know it's a misconception that it is I guess technically a part-time job. But
it's what you put into it and what you get out of it, right? In many aspects. I still have, unlike most members, I only have one office. It's in Albany, so I can candidly say I go to the Capitol every day because I do.
Okay.
But we, obviously it's kind of an interesting process. At the end of session, you take the first week or two of July, kind of catch your breath, start putting some files away because session's over and we're not going to be looking at these things right away. But you also spend a lot of time working on your letters to the governor of legislation that passed. I had about 8 or 9 bills that passed that are going to the governor. Some are very menial. They're retirement bills that are almost protocol, but they need to be done by the legislature.
Well, what do you call that? A letter to the governor?
Yeah, well, whenever our bills go to the governor and they go over a period of time, it's wise for your own benefit to make sure the governor understands why you push this bill and what the merits of it are. So we'll work on the memos to the governor on why we think our bill's so great. You got to remember, in the legislature, to get bills passed, and there's only about 600 by both houses, you had to convince your colleagues, you had to convince your staff that it was important. But at the end of the day, once you get past that hurdle, the governor's pen is what makes the difference. Either he accepts it or he rejects it. He chapters it, as we call when you write it into law. It's a chapter of law. Or he vetoes the bill. So over the course of this next, from the end of June through the end of the year, batches of bills will go to the governor every couple weeks. They work it out between the Senate and the Assembly. And most people don't realize this. This is why I'm explaining this. Because people say, well, why don't you just tell the governor to sign your bill today? Well, irrespective of who the governor is, the reality is it's best to kind of work with the executive.
These are bills that have already passed.
Passed both houses.
Passed both houses, so.
And they go over in batches. They go over in clumps of 20 or 30 bills, and they go every couple weeks, and then the governor has 10 days to act on it. Matter of fact, I've got a couple bills right now that the governor is considering. One deals with what I call mandate relief, which allows school districts and municipalities to enter an agreement that if a school district wants to add more crossing guards for whatever reason, and they say we want to pay for them, which many districts do want to pay for it, they will now legally have the ability to do so. That has not been the case. Crossing guards have always been the responsibility of the municipality. But school districts change, they add on to things, and at the end of the day, if they've got the resources to pay for it, let's take the burden off the local taxpayers in that aspect.
Okay. Now, I should say, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but there's some construction going on in the library. if you hear noises.
Oh, I thought that was the dentist. I thought that was the dentist's office next door. So, anyways, we work on those memos. We work on advocating for our bills.
And you're one of 150. So, what is he inundated with these?
Well, there's about 600 bills. Some are, like I said, almost administrative. So they're not. It doesn't involve a lot of thought. And this is an election year, so every year is different. It's an election year. The governor is actually taking a lot of bills he knows he's going to sign as a good gesture to the members that he's working with them. And then the other thing we do and we'll ramp up even more in September and October and November, is we work on improving the bills that didn't get passed in our House, in the Assembly.
Okay.
You know,
I mean, your bills that you...
my bills, yeah, I don't work on somebody else's, I
Okay.
work on mine.
Okay.
You know, for example, I have a bill that I've been working on for 3 years that I finally got through the Assembly this year, and now I'm trying to look at who the Senate partner is going to be next year, because the senator that I did the bill with is no longer going to be in the Senate next year. And it deals with expediting the process for foreclosing on vacant and abandoned properties. Currently in law, you have to wait at least 2 years to foreclose on a residential piece of property. I represent the lower wards of Albany, West Hill, Arbor Hill, South End of Albany. City of Albany has about 900 parcels that are already vacant and abandoned and derelict and falling apart. What I want to
Those
do,
ones with the X's on
red
it?
X's, yeah.
Okay.
So what I want to do is expedite the foreclosure process when we know there's nobody involved with that parcel, nobody's living there, no one's taking an interest in the property. Let's move that up to 1 year. My thinking being, and this proves itself out to be true, you reduce the inventory of more properties becoming vacant and abandoned, and you allow those properties to be foreclosed upon in an expedient manner, and hopefully get them into the responsible hands of a new owner. And that's my goal. Now, it didn't pass in the Senate, it passed in the Assembly. Been a lot of work to get the Assembly to go along with that. So I'm kind of cautiously optimistic that next year will be the year, but it takes time sometimes. And you work on that, and this is what we call the off-season.
Yeah, now, how many bills you yourself, your office, would you have?
I carry probably too many bills. I have about 83 bills.
Okay.
Now,
But what I meant was you're the originator, or you or your staff.
those are drafted in our office by our staff, and
Now, you're saying is that more?
83 over the 2-year cycle,
Okay.
and probably about 25 have been passed, which is good. It's actually, I try not to just take any bill just for the heck of it. Sometimes you do take statement bills. You know, I take bills that I know will never see the light of the day in the Assembly, like the scaffold bill. The Assembly majority, which I'm a part of, will probably not support it because certain labor groups are adamantly opposed to it. At the same token, I take this scaffold bill, which basically causes an undue premium on every construction project that's done in the state of New York. You know that library project you're talking about?
That we can hear them?
Yeah, you're
hammering?
paying an additional 17% in insurance premium for the construction company because of the scaffold bill, which basically says that if you were working on a site, you're told to go home, you're not fit to work today, you come back on the work site and get in an accident, the employer and the owner of that property are wholly responsible, and you are scot-free.
Okay.
And it's what's driving up insurance, construction insurance premiums in the state of New York, which is why New York State, technically, although we like to say we're open for business, is not always open for business.
And then when you come up with these bills or draft them, you have to have co-sponsors.
You do, and you have to make sure that you choose the right co-sponsor.
Do you literally just go up and ask, hey, do you want to co-sponsor?
Yeah, we do different things. Listen, there's times when the Senate Health Chair is campaigning, he's grabbing in the hallway and say, listen, I got this bill. You're in the majority. You get it. You understand health. He's the health chair. He says, would you take a look at this bill? So I'll take a look at it and get back to him. I've done the same things with people like Betty Little or Kathy Marchione on certain bills that I've had. There's a logic to it, right?
Yeah.
You might want to pick, the foreclosure bill I talked about. I chose Kathy Marchione not only because we've known each other for 25 years, but because of the fact that she's the chair of local governments. This hits in the sweet spot of an issue of local governments. So you try to choose the appropriate chair.
And then, you work with. Does a bill have to have a certain number of co-sponsors?
Yeah, well, it's nice to have co-sponsors, and to be honest with you, I usually get a good response, but that's not the be-all, end-all.
Okay. And how's it work the other way?
The Senate's completely different.
I meant the other Assemblyman. They come up to you, or they ask you, or they.
Yeah, you raise a good question because people don't see the internal memos. Every day there's memos. Hey, I'm sponsoring a bill to make Joe Nash president of the United States. Would you sign on to this bill? And you just fill out a gold form, yes or no, or yes, put me on, and you're listed as a sponsor. And you can go on our Assembly website, look up any bill, and you'll see who the sponsor is and the co-sponsors.
So it sounds like a lot of work gets done in the hallways over there.
Offices, hallways, our staff is integral. Our staff, our legislative directors or chief of staffs do a lot of the communication.
All the staffs work with each other.
They do.
So other than, I guess you could say, finishing up the session in the summer, if you go on your Facebook page, you're all over there's pictures of you going here, going there. What are some of the events that you have? I shouldn't say you have to attend, but what are some of the things that you do?
I think probably the best part of the off season is that you're able to get out and be in the community a little bit more and spend time with different constituencies. Mm-hmm. And it could be anything as going, I'll be going to a library reading program tomorrow.
Okay.
But I've also been marching in the war against violence in Arbor Hill, in West Hill, and in Albany for the last month. I've been going Sunday afternoons and marching with my people. Okay. And saying that this violence has to end. So it allows us to really get more engaged in things that during the session time, because you're so focused on the budget and the legislation, you just can't spend that much time out of the building. So I like it because we're able to engage more with the public, which is what we really should.
So when you're at a march or at a picnic or at a live, do people literally come up to you and start saying, "Can you do this? Can you do that?"
Absolutely. People.
I mean, are they usually nice about it, or?
People are always great. Now, there's people that I'll be in church and people will come up and start talking to me during the sermon, and say,
"They don't even wait till after."
Nope. That's okay.
And I should say,
I've had people grab me in the aisle when I'm walking in the community. It's okay. That you know what? It hit them at the right moment, I guess.
And I should say, for most people know that you're also. You still work full-time at the pharmacy?
Not full-time.
You're president of...
I own the pharmacy.
The Mayor's Pharmacy in Cohoes.
Yeah, I do all the problems. So I usually... And I work weekends, and last night I worked night because someone's on vacation. And the funny part is... I get a lot of stuff from people. Some lady... I called the lady the other day, long-time patient, only lives a couple blocks away. I said, Diane, you're due for this, this, and this. Would you like us to get it ready and have it delivered? Sure. And by the way... my no parking driveway sign is faded, and there's too many trucks coming down here. Can you deal with that? I said, well, I'm no longer the mayor. She goes, I know, but you were the mayor, and you can help figure it out. I said, yep. Well, so we get those constituent issues a lot.
Well, how do you balance that? It's something, sometimes you got things like your parking. But how do you balance all these? It seems like many, many, many little issues. They're not little to the people, of course.
Right.
With the opioid crisis. I mean, how do you balance that, or you just got to go with it, or I don't know what.
You go with it. You put a lot of time into your days. My days start very early in the morning and end late at night. I enjoy what I do. But you got to remember, I grew up in an era of Mike McNulty, Ron Canistrieri, Jack McEnany, true public servants, and you can't help but realize that this is your time to make your contribution. And I'm privileged that people have actually, for whatever reason, thought at least 7 or 8 times to go into the voter's box and say, you know what, McDonald deserves our support.
So you're counting your time as mayor of Cohoes there. Is that what you're...
It was a 13-year sentence,
okay.
Yeah, it was good.
So that's what I could lead into. You're finishing your 3rd term, and you're going to run for a 4th. I just was wondering, besides some of the things you've just been talking about, what have you found that makes you want to continue on?
It's interesting.
Or did you think you might be going this long when you first ran?
I didn't really know because it's hard to leave being the executive, being the mayor. You're in charge. You get to.
Well, like I said before, now you're one of 150.
Yeah, but you know what really really came into high gear the last 3 years is that I kind of realized that I can't be everything to everybody, but I need to focus on my areas that I'm actually knowledgeable in. So. I'm a point of contact with my colleagues and a point person when it comes to local government issues. I served as mayor for 13 years. I'm the point of contact when it comes to health-related issues and the opioid-related issues, because I'm the only licensed healthcare professional in both houses of the legislature.
Including MDs, right?
Yeah, there's no doctors. I'm the only pharmacist. There's hardly any actively practicing licensed professionals at all in both houses, let alone pharmacists. But I'm the go-to guy in healthcare to help validate. That's an issue. No, it's not. And I'm only one of a handful of small business owners, which, the Assembly majority has never been, its strongest suit is not focusing on helping small business, but they don't hurt it by any stretch. I try to be a larger voice for upstate New York. try to make sure that people understand that as much as New York State overall, because of the tremendous growth going on in New York City and some growth in the capital region, is doing okay, we need to really focus on expanding opportunity for the rest of upstate New York. Otherwise, we're going to lose.
And so, what have you found though in the 3 terms that, like I say,
What I found is that the opioid crisis has definitely been one. There's no doubt about it. The local government and really helping local governments through these very difficult times with this the tax cap has really strangled local governments. They're still responsible to get the services done, but they have no room to work with in their budget. And it's a long, winding story when it gets to that. But that's where I've hit my stride. I've hit my stride on issues that make good sense, and also the human services area. It's an area that I feel very comfortable talking about, particularly when it comes to care for the disabled. I know that field very well. I've worked in that field for 33 years as a pharmacist, 43 years if you count the times when I used to work in the pharmacy as a clerk. So, those are the kind of things that, I don't want to sound like a Hallmark card, but I do wake up every day knowing that I can actually help somebody in some small little way. Now, the cynics will say, anybody could do that. Yeah, you're right. And I got news for you. There's a lot of people who don't do that stuff. Yeah. There are a lot of people in elected office that don't really care. And at the end of the day, if Joe Nash comes to me with a concern, no matter how little it is, if I can help Joe Nash, I've done a good thing. And
then do you find, if you win, when you get seniority, does that increase your chances of maybe doing more? Or I don't know if doing more is right, but are you?
Well, I'm getting to the point now. This will be I'm running on a post, so I think unless my wife organizes a coup, I'll probably do okay.
Yeah.
I'll be able to move into a position, hopefully, of being in a point of leadership in the assembly, because I'm at the halfway point now.
Okay.
In regards to the 150 that you talk about.
Okay.
So who knows? Maybe a chairmanship or chairpersonship may be an opportunity. If not, you know what? I like what I'm doing. I work well with my colleagues here in the Capital Region, and Pat Fahey in Albany, and obviously Phil Steck here in Colonie, and Angelo out as we move out to Schenectady. We work well together as a team. And Kerry Werner up in Saratoga, I should not forget Kerry. The Assembly majority is very fortunate to have 5 very active members here in the Capital Region, representing the Capital Region. And we've actually become a Capital Region block, which is good.
I know there's a New York City block.
We also have an upstate caucus as well.
A whole
caucus, right? You can just ride the Erie Canal and go north and south of it, and you're going to find all the members.
Now, is the New York City and the rest of the state divide, is when you read in the paper and you hear about it, is it really?
It's not.
Are they really at loggerheads the way it makes it sound?
The reality is this, and this is part of the outcomes of the media, right? What you see on TV can be quite showy, and it is. It's a show. It's
they make it seem like it's a big battle.
I got news for you. As much as the impression is all those liberal Democrats in New York City, there's a lot of members that get it. They understand it. They're big champions of small business. They're sensitive to the upstate matters. Just like, to be honest with you, when the whole thing comes up about rent control in New York City, I listen to my colleagues in the city because you know why? They're elected to represent the people living in those neighborhoods and communities. They have a much better idea of what's going on there than John McDonald does up here in Cohoes.
Well,
I acquiesce on that aspect, but at the same token, when it comes to what we talked about earlier, vacant and abandoned properties in urban centers in upstate New York, they listen to me because they know I know my stuff.
Well, the whole assembly has to vote on something like rent control, even though it's mainly New York City issue, right?
Right. But still, there are members in certain parts of upstate New York that get a lot of pressure if you support a New York City initiative. So the votes do get narrow, and they get close. But at the end of the day, they usually carry the process.
And speaking of, a minute ago, you said the possibility, now that you're entering seniority, of becoming a chairman. I should say at the moment, you are a member of the Real Property Tax Committee, this Committee on Cities, Aging, Ways and Means, Higher Education, Alcoholism and Drug Abuse, and you're also the chair of a subcommittee, I guess, subcommittee on effective treatment. Does that have to do with the alcohol?
That falls under the category of alcohol and substance abuse. As we know, this opioid crisis is focused on four approaches. Education, enforcement, but treatment and recovery are the other two. And so we've been trying to make sure that we're reducing the barriers for people to access treatment, which is a challenge, but we're making progress. We want to make sure there's enough seats available for people to get the proper treatment that's going to work for them, because not everybody has the ability just to go off and go 90 days to a facility and come back clean, and it just doesn't work that easy, by the way.
No, that's a subcommittee, though.
Subcommittee, yep. So I work with the chair, Linda Rosenthal from New York, who's the chair of the Alcohol and Substance Abuse Committee.
So what are some, now that you said what you do over the summer, why don't you give us just a short recap of last session, what, you did do some, and then we can talk about when does the session start this fall?
So the budget really is the centerpiece and the attraction, and we made some great progress once again on really what are our core principles. It focused on education, it focused on economic development. What I was very happy about is that we are seeing a response to what most of the regional economic development councils have been talking about throughout the state. We need money to help retrain the workforce for workforce development. And the governor really was helpful in that aspect this year. And don't forget, this is his signature program that he started when he first became governor. So we have now a fair amount of money aside to help train the workforce for employers that want to grow in our region but have been held back because they can't attract the right people. And people don't realize that. One of the reasons why businesses may not locate to upstate New York, it might be the taxes, it might not be. It's about do you have the skilled and trained workforce to help our business be successful?
Well, everything now is computer oriented, not everything, but.
Yeah, but you know what? Here's the interesting part in the optimism. Most of our youth have grown up in that electronic age. They're not afraid of it. Maybe you and I may have looked at this and say, do you touch it or do you push it? But there's many other people that I see it in my own pharmacy. Whenever I onboard a new employee, our registers are computers. They really are. And, I look at the thing, I'm like, I don't know if I want to touch it. And my staff, bing, 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 bing. These kids just jump all over.
I know, the same here. I always ask the younger people here at the library for help.
Yeah, you're afraid you're going to hurt it.
So when does the session start?
So technically, session doesn't start to the first Wednesday in January.
Oh, okay.
No, we don't go back until the end of the year, at the beginning of the new year.
Oh, okay.
But that doesn't mean we can't be called back in. And, there's always the rumor floating around we're going to be called back in for one reason or the other, but we shall see.
So I'm thinking it was the same as like the school year for some reason.
No.
So what are some of the big issues when, I know this is August.
Well, when we go back? Well, the real big issue, I think, is going to be is that this being an election year, there was a budget that had a lot of hopeful projections of revenues. And
back in
April.
Okay.
And here we are. It's only August. We haven't really seen where the revenue number is going to fall. So there's talk that we may be dealing with another deficit.
Okay.
So that automatically sets off the bells and whistles of, okay, how are we going to advance in this area or that area, or how are we going to make things work? And, we'll know more by the end of October. When we get the 6 months figures, we'll have a rough idea to see how property tax collections are coming in and other fees and services. But I think the biggest challenge always is going to be budget. We're all going to have our important initiatives. Obviously, I still think the opioid and heroin crisis continues to grow. CDC just reported 72,000 deaths nationally.
I saw that.
That's an increase from 65,000. But we've made differences in regards to legally prescribed opioids and reducing the quantities being dispensed. And the problem now is that you've got these just diabolical individuals who are just using fentanyl, which is extremely potent opioid, and they're literally killing people.
Now that is heroin, right?
Fentanyl is an opioid. Heroin is an opioid, but fentanyl is a
class of.
It's a synthetic analog. This is my pharmacy coming in. It's a synthetic analog of the opioids. Extremely deadly. Extraordinarily. Most people will have been exposed to fentanyl in the OR to help you when you're coming out of pain. But now you have Carfentanil, which is a synthetic analog of fentanyl, which just a brushing against it would knock over an elephant. What do you think it does to a human being? And it's a terrible way to die. People just stop breathing. It's terrible.
And then they have they have something now that they can give them to bring people back.
Naloxone is what can help people recover, and it is making a difference. And if anything, what's happened over the last 3 or 4 years, we have by statute allowed more individuals to be able to actually stock naloxone in their facilities, like a library, like a school building. And you don't have to be, you don't need to be a pharmacist or a doctor to administer it. They're pretty simple. It's just like doing an Afrin nasal spray. You just do 2 squirts.
And this actually saves people from an overdose.
This actually will reverse the impacts of the overdose.
Yeah.
However, what we're finding out with the fentanyl and the carfentanil, whereas 1 dose would do it, now you have to do 2 or 3 or 4.
Okay.
I think it's quite expensive, but it makes a difference in saving lives.
All right. Well, it sounds like even though you're out of session, you're still busy.
It doesn't stop. As I say, I'm never bored, and just very fortunate to have the opportunity to represent the people.
All right. Well, thank you for the legislative update. That's Assemblyman John McDonald, and we will see you next time on Legislative Update.